Get the town clerk situated on getting this streaming, and I will give you the go-ahead.
All right.
Yes. So I don't need to do anything on my end as far as... We're ready when you are, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting to order the October 19th, 2020 Winterville Planning and Zoning Board. Is there anyone on the Zoom that we need to identify before we get started, Brian?
Yeah, I can introduce everybody, make sure everybody's aware of. So we have Dr. Greg Monroe on Zoom, Ms. Darlene Gardner, Mr. Douglas Killian, and Mr. Robert Briley via Zoom. And in person, we have Tucker Moore, Rondé Fleming, Margie Crawford, and Peggy Claiborne.
All right, thank you. Okay, you've all received your agenda. We'll make a motion to, if there are no questions, to receive tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second. Rondé Fleming.
If you need help hearing that, those in the building, Mr. Jones.
Oh,
I think I heard a motion to.
so we had a motion by Tucker Moore, is that right?
Second, yes, Tucker Moore.
So we had who motioned, I'm sorry.
I moved.
All right, so motion by Rondé Fleming and then second by Tucker Moore.
Okay, all right, and so all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
So what we'll do is we'll poll the board, and I'll let the town clerk do that.
Okay,
Mr. Monroe,
aye?
Mr. Killian.
He's giving thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Briley,
I can learn to understand you much better if I can get familiar with the...
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Mr. Briley. He's giving thumbs up.
Ms. Clyburn, Ms. Crawford. Aye. Mr. Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Present.
Is that a complete roll call?
That's correct. It's all in favor.
Okay, I skipped over any excused absences. I didn't, is there any, Brian?
I did have one, Mr. Mike Weldon did email and say he had some family issues come up and it would need to be excused. I haven't heard anything from Mr. Willie Hines.
Okay. All right, we have one request for excused absence. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve, Doug Killian.
Second, Fleming.
So we got a motion by Douglas Killian and a second by Rondé Fleming to excuse Mike Weldon.
Okay, I will vote your pleasure upon roll call.
Dr. Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Killian,
Aye.
Mr. Briley,
Aye.
Ms. Clyburn, Ms. Crawford, Mr. Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Affirmative.
All in favor.
All right, all in favor?
Are we ready for the next item?
Yes.
The next item is approval of the August regular meeting minutes.
Motion to approve, Doug Killian.
Second. Moore.
So we've got a motion and a second. Motion by Douglas Killian, second by Tucker Moore.
Okay, vote your pleasure upon roll call.
Dr. Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Killian,
Aye.
Mr. Briley,
Aye.
Ms. Clyburn, Ms. Clyburn, Ms. Crawford, Mr. Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
and Mr. Moore.
Affirmative.
Thank you. 8-0.
Okay, new business, we'll turn it over to staff.
All right, thank you, Dr. Monroe. Let's see here. So our first item on the action item on the agenda tonight is a rezoning request. So you'll hopefully you'll be able to follow along on the screen. The applicant is David Evans. The location of the property in question is on Church Street Extension. That's at its intersection with Park Road. Parcel number 70857. Site data is 33.4 acres, and the current zoning is AR, and the proposed zoning district is R8 with a conditional zoning district. So that condition for the zoning district would be lot shall be a minimum of 10,000 square feet. And we'll go through the reason behind that soon. So adjacent properties were mailed notification of this rezoning request on the 5th of October, and notification was posted on the same day on site. So here you can see the aerial of the property outlined in blue. You can see just to the north is Park Road. There's the Shrine Club on the corner there. You've got Brookstone subdivision here, and the church right here in the middle of the property. I think it's, I knew I was going to get it. It's Winterville Church of Christ, I think is the actual name of the church. So here's your current zoning. You can see residential to the adjacent O&I where the Shrine Club is, but for the vast majority of it is going to be AR out here. You see some GB off in the screen off to the west there. Existing land use, this property is being farmed, so it's agricultural or vacant. Future land use plan calls for suburban residential. So suburban residential, primarily large lots, single-family detached residential. That many people love about this town's housing stock. Generally, you're going to get 2 to 3 dwelling units per acres. So you're going to have that larger or medium to large lot with front and side loaded garages. Smaller lot sizes can be occasionally accommodated if minimum standards for open space and amenities are exceeded. So here's our future land use character area we pull from all of our rezoning requests. So the big one we want to look at obviously is the potential zoning. So you can see potential zoning does have R10 and R8. So you've got pretty much all the residential zoning districts that could be potential here. R8, if it goes down to R8, it does recommend having additional open space or amenities. But with the condition on this, we're treating it pretty much like a R10. So that is recommended as a potential zoning district for suburban residential. Just a photo of the site, so you can see, as I said before, it's vacant or used for agriculture right now. I did want to point out some peculiarities to this site. So you can see here, this will be the north property line. This is Park Road. It's actually a DOT maintained road within the town of Winterville that's actually a dirt road. So these are some of the things they're going to have to overcome when they develop the site. As it stands right now, if you look in our subdivision ordinance, it requires that anybody that develops a residential subdivision in town would have to connect to a DOT maintained road. This is something that obviously needs to be addressed and needs to be kind of something a good solution needs to be had before they move forward. So that's something that council's going to have to address during the preliminary plat stage. Obviously, we're not looking at that far ahead, but it is something to think about while we're rezoning this thing. So DOT is probably, the way they operate going forward, they're going to put the burden on the developer. So I think that's something to be cognizant of, just moving forward. Also, another peculiarity or another unique attribute of this site is the railroad, which is to the west. So that whole western side is the railroad. So obviously, the railroad's really protective of their right-of-way. You don't see any crossings allowed other than what's existing normally. So as I pointed out, with the peculiarities of the site details with the park road not being paved, railroad tracks bordered on the west side, and the fact that they're putting a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet, staff does find the request was reasonable and in the public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with the surrounding land uses and the future land use plan. So staff does recommend approval. So that approval would be to rezone 33.4 acres from AR to R8 with the condition that the minimum lot size be 10,000 square foot. So just going through our process, as we'll go through a public comment session, and then afterwards, this board will make a recommendation to council, and council will hold that public hearing in December, and that hearing will be scheduled at the next meeting in November. So with that, I'll answer any questions you guys have of me, and I'll let you know that the property owner, applicant, and their project engineer is in attendance tonight, so they'll be able to answer any questions as well. Mr. Chairman?
So, Brian, the request is just to rezone. They have not entered any plat information with regards to that there is a development that is in the works.
That's absolutely correct. So first step always is to get the zoning in place, then they can move forward with, you know, their layout and design, make sure they can fit in what they want to get fit in and out there. So.
Okay, and you said that the landowner and the developer or someone is there.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask if what is, I know they're requesting the rezoning, what are their desires with regards to development of this land?
Yeah, and I'll be happy to turn it over to the project engineer or the property owner. If you guys, whoever want to answer that question, just step to the podium. That microphone's on, so they'll be able to hear your answers. If you don't mind, just state your name.
My name is Linwood Stroud, Stroud Engineering, representing the owner-developer, David Evans. What Mr. Evans wants to do is construct single-family.
Order, please.
Hey, we just pull that mic to you. Linwood, there you go. Just make sure you're talking directly into it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Again, my name's Linwood Stroud, engineer with Stroud Engineering, representing David Evans, who's the owner-developer of the property. The property's been in his family for a long time. He wishes to develop it to construct single-family homes. We chose to go with R8 conditional use because it committed to a 10,000 square foot lot, which is the same lot size as R10 zone. It just allows you a little bit more latitude in design as far as lot width and that type of thing. But for many of you probably know that Mr. Evans developed a subdivision, one of the premier subdivisions in Winterville, Canterbury, many years ago, large subdivision. The quality of homes that you see built in Canterbury is something you could expect to see in this subdivision if it's developed as such. And it's something that I think citizens of Winterville and as well as the owners could be proud of if this zoning passes. Mr. Evans also developed several subdivisions in Winterville of similar character and quality. Lindale, Tucker Estates. So with that, I would just open it up to questions.
Yes, I had a question. What is your, if you have a plan yet, what is your plan for the dirt road? That's
Well-
right in the middle, if there is a plan at this point.
Well, we don't know for sure yet. We realize that's an issue we have to address. There's really very little traffic on that road. It's not really much needed anymore. It's a safety hazard at the railroad because there's no signal at the railroad, no arm that comes down.
Could it be done away with?
Well, that is one of the things we are discussing, and it's a possibility. Of course, if we can't do that, then we'd have to work out something with DOT so it could be improved to meet the standards.
And it would have to have arms and
Yes, sir.
things of that nature?
Yes, sir.
My other question is, what about the railroad along the backside? Would you have a barrier, mound, anything like that?
I think we want to, and I'll defer to Mr., if I say something wrong, let me know, but probably put a landscape mound there that would kind of block off the noise for residents in the area.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm David Evans. I thank y'all for taking your time to listen to us tonight. We would like to put some type of either noise barrier or fence or something to prevent access to the railroad tracks because we do know they're dangerous. However, there are only about 2 trains per day at the maximum that use that track. So it's not a highly used railroad track.
Thank you.
I have a question. Who was the proprietor or the owner? You said Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir.
What's his first name?
David?
Is he related or is he a part of the Garrison Evans Lumber Company years ago?
Absolutely, still is.
We can't hear.
Yes, I'm chairman of the Garrison Evans Lumber Company.
Mr. Evans, hold on one second. So Mr. Ronnie Fleming was asking, he was asking if Mr. David Evans was in fact the same Evans as Garrison Evans Lumber Company. So, Mr. Evans?
The answer is yes. I'm chairman of Garrison Evans Lumber Company. And I have also with me John Evans, who's president of Garrison Evans Lumber Company, Kenneth Lilly, who actually lives in Winterville, is vice president of Garrison Evans Lumber Company. And we've been around for 100 years.
Doug Killian, I have a question. Could either Linda or Brian please address again the explanation of why it's going R8 conditional district for 10,000 square foot rather than an R10, which is automatic 10,000 square foot lot?
So I'll answer just so it's you can hear me a little bit more clearly. And Mr. Stroud, if I get this wrong, just feel free to actually correct me. But the difference between an R8 and an R10 lot dimensionally is that an R10 would be required to have an 80-foot lot width at the front or the setback line. If you go down to R8, those dimensions are different. So an R8 will have a 70-foot lot width. So they want an R8 so they can achieve that 70-foot lot width, but at the same time, their minimum lot would be 10,000 square foot. So essentially, they're going to be having an R10 lot with a 70-foot lot width. And I'll let Linwood expound on that.
That's pretty accurate. I actually looked at Canterbury before I came in. I found most of the lots in Canterbury are 80 feet, but some of them are less than 80 feet. So if we had R10 zoning and we had a design situation where we needed a 75 or 76, 77-foot lot, we couldn't do it in R10, but we could with the conditional use zoning. So we're not saying that all the lots would be 70 feet wide, but certainly we would need some of them to be less than 80. So that's the primary reason we need the R8 conditional zoning.
But the minimum would be 70 foot wide, correct?
The minimum would be 70 foot wide, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Brian, one last question from me. I know based on the map you showed us, you have the church and you have Brookstone back there. Compared to Brookstone, are there similarities in, because I know we made an amendment to Brookstone so that the developer could finish developing it?
Those are fairly large lots, most of those in there when they did them. I think those are like pushing, some of them are right at 20,000 square foot, so they're really, really large lots. But if you look at them, and I think some of them go down to around, they range anywhere from 20,000 to about 11 to 12,000 in there. So they'll be a little bit larger, for sure. But I would assume the product here would be comparable.
Right, and of course, our recommendation is to the town council, but I just didn't want us to approve something and we've, created contradiction right across the street from one another.
Greg, I think some of the documents that were forwarded to us, it said to the east was R15, which is a subdivision across the street. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that's Brookstone. Yeah, well, because now Brookstone is not completely fully developed. I know that the phase one is developed. Brian, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So the back portion is still not developed at all.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for staff or for the landowners and the developers? What is the pleasure of the board? We'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of the zoning change.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the recommendation.
By
Tucker Moore.
And we have a second. Did I hear a second?
Oh, no, I was just, Tucker Moore was the one who made the motion.
Margie Crawford, I second the motion.
We have a second from Margie Crawford.
Okay, please vote your pleasure upon roll call.
Dr. Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Killian,
aye.
Mr. Briley,
Aye.
Ms. Clyburn. Thank you. Ms. Crawford,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Passes 8-0.
8-0 in the affirmative.
Okay, so the recommendation stands approved. Item 2 on the new business, Chapter 160D.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to let these gentlemen clear out real quick, and then we'll get started on the zoning ordinance amendments.
All right, thank you.
Can you hear me, Miss Peggy? Can you hear me? Is it working? All right, so Chapter 160D of the North Carolina State Statutes. So what is Chapter 160D? So the new Chapter 160D of the General Statutes consolidates current city and county enabling statutes for development regulations. So right now, as it stands, the North Carolina General Statutes give local authorities the ability to regulate development through two chapters, chapters 153A and chapter 160A. So the one is for the cities and one is for county. So 153A is for county jurisdictions and 160A is for city and town jurisdictions. So what this new chapter does is it consolidates those two chapters into one. So instead of having 153A and 160A, there'll be chapter 160D. So simply put, it is a total rewrite of the North Carolina Planning and Zoning Statutes. That's a big, big task. But at the same time, at the state level, it requires every local ordinance in the state to be amended to be in line with that statute. So overall, it refines it refines procedures, aligns terminology, and confirms authority that was assumed under the old statutes. So basically, all this is making sure we are up to speed with the state statute. It doesn't change anything procedurally what we do and how it's required. We're looking at terminology across the state to be the same. So when you're talking about zoning regulations in Winterville, somebody in Maggie Valley, the western part of the state, will know exactly what you're talking about. So when you're talking about a special use permit here, it's going to be exactly the same as the mountain region, North Carolina. So our procedurally, it will be the exact same. Legislatively, how you get to a rezoning request, it will be the same. And it just really simplifies that across the board for North Carolina. Something that needs to be done for a long time, because it is really confusing when somebody's talking about, for example, if you want a conditional use permit to do a home occupation, but then somebody wants to do a conditional use zoning, which is totally different. So a conditional use zoning would be a legislative act, where a conditional use permit would be a quasi-judicial act. So now, that conditional, anytime you hear conditional zoning, that's going to be straight legislative. So that'll be exactly what we're doing in this boardroom. And then a special use permit would be quasi-judicial. That would be your Board of Adjustment. So anytime, so it separates those two and gives distinct terminology to those. So we can, my plan is to get just as in-depth as you guys want to. So I sent out two things to you. A summary of amendments. So basically you'll see that summary, and it shows exactly what we took out and exactly what we put back in its place. Sometimes we actually had to go back and add some more things. And then the checklist from the school government. So the school government has been working on this since 2013. And they finally got everything squared away last fiscal year, or last calendar year, I'm sorry. So we've got till, originally we had till January 1st of 2021, but with COVID they've backed it up and we've actually got a little bit more time. But we want to go ahead, we've been able to work on this internally and get this done, so we want to go ahead and get it done and get it on the books. So we were on time to get it done in the original time frame, but they did give us a little bit more time because of COVID and the pandemic. But going back to my original thought with the checklist from the school government, so they're really concise. They actually, the school staff at UNC, they've got a dedicated staff over there. Those are the ones who spearheaded this, so they were able to translate their work into a checklist for all the local municipalities. So we were able to take their work and just fine-tooth comb through our ordinance and make sure we were up to speed with the mandated general statutes requirements. Let's see here. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll take your direction on this. I can, like I said, I can get just as detailed as you guys want to, or we can kind of do a 10,000 foot overview of it. It really depends on how much we could spend an hour talking about this, or we could spend 15 minutes talking about it. But overall, like I said, it doesn't change procedurally anything we do. We are literally going by the strict law that they've given us and mandated that we do this. But I don't mind giving a good overview of it. So, but I'll do it at the pleasure of the board.
Right. But my recommendation to the board is that if they're having received the information, the summary and amendments that outline the information you just discussed, that there be, if there be any questions, that we ask those specifically in those specific sections. I don't feel the need to belabor to go in it over detail by detail when it's already been sent to us. But again, I will likewise hear from the board, and we will move it at their pleasure, the majority's pleasure.
Yes, Ron D. Fleming. I did just receive this. I would like to take the leisure time of going through it, reading through it, and I would like to suggest that at the next meeting, If we have questions, we will ask at that meeting. If not, we could just move on with the agenda.
All right, can we add that to the agenda for the next meeting, Brian, that we revisit or at least have, if those who may have questions, or do you need approval tonight to move it towards the next phase?
That's totally up to the board. At this point, like I said, I can do it either way. But I would need a recommendation, but to move forward to council for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would suggest we vote on it tonight. We've had it for almost a week. I feel sufficient. I do have a couple of quick questions for my education, if I might, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. And this is just for my education. On page 55, section 13.2, and you don't have to look it up, but it uses a term called down zoning.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I've been on the board for 12, 13 years, and I have no idea what down zoning is. Would you help me out?
Yeah, not a problem. So basically it's a third-party downzoning, so they're trying to, that would make a third-party downzoning illegal. So downzoning just really means, it's just as simple as it sounds. So you're downzoning to make it less regulatory. So let's just say from a GB to an industrial. So you'd have more, you'd be able to have more intense uses in that zoning. So basically what it's saying though is that right now as it stands, anybody in town could literally have any property rezoned. You could request to rezone any piece of property you wanted. But this makes it illegal to downzone it from a third party. And downzoning is not illegal, but it makes it a third party. It makes it illegal for a third party to do it. So if you own a piece of property, you can obviously have it requested to rezone to anything you desire. Now, whether or not that rezoning is approved is another question. But let's just say you didn't like your neighbor's piece of property. You can't go in there and request a rezoning for that piece of property, for that downzoning, and for purposes that would, for whatever reason, benefit you. Let's just say you had a piece of property you thought would be more beneficial if you had a piece of commercial property next to it. You wouldn't be able to go there and do that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. My second question is this, and it's real simple, is there more coming down the pike? Are we gonna redo our Winterville or zoning ordinances, or is this it?
So this will be incorporated, obviously. So this is our zoning ordinance. This will be incorporated in our zoning ordinance. As far as 160D goes, this will encompass everything we're required to do from 160D. So more will be coming down the pike in our local ordinances, specifically our subdivision ordinance. So like I said before, these statutes from the state level give us the authority for development regulations. So that does include the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance. So the subdivision ordinance will be a little bit different just because of the way we've come with how far we've come with technology and the ability to use digital copies for recording and all that stuff. So when we do our subdivision ordinance update for the 160Ds, there'll probably be a little bit more procedural stuff in there, and we'll get into that at a later date. But just so you'll know, so you'll have right now you can actually do an e-recording with the Register of Deeds. Our ordinance doesn't allow for that, so we would update that in our ordinance just so we wouldn't be requiring 3 Mylar copies where we got to keep a Mylar copy, the Register of Deeds has to keep a Mylar copy. So things like that. But yes, the short answer is yes, there will be more coming.
Thank you.
Yes, Ron Fleming once again. I just want to clarify. I know this was sent to everyone on their emails and everything. I've been having a problem with my personal computer, and I haven't been able to open. So that's why I said that I haven't had a chance to read this, and it's new to me, just to clarify.
And that's not a problem. If you got, like, I know it's a lot to take in, especially at, first glance, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose. But if you got, if we can go through anything you need to tonight, Mr. Fleming.
Right, so, with that, Mr. Police Department would going to allow you to go ahead and move forward with our recommendation, and then that if his specific questions can be answered, because according to what you told us, there is no procedural or administrative changes or anything that will impact us as a board, but it will allow you to go ahead and move forward with getting this incorporated into our zoning ordinance.
Yes, that's correct.
So if there are no other questions, or if there is any questions, please step forward. If not, what is the pleasure of the board regarding the zone ordinance amendment for chapter 160D?
Douglas Killian, recommend approval.
We have a motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, we have a second by Ms. Gardner.
Donald Gardner.
Okay. Please vote your pleasure upon roll call.
Okay. Dr. Monroe?
Aye.
Mr. Killian?
Aye.
Mr. Briley?
Aye.
Ms. Clyburn? Ms. Crawford? Mr. Fleming?
Nay.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1.
Okay, with the majority rule, we do recommend the amendments. Next item on the agenda, report from staff.
Let's see. So, just to give you guys an update, the rezonings that we had for the Davenport property and the F&A construction property did get approved by council at their meeting last month, or actually this month, their last meeting. So I kind of did give away that we're going to be coming forward with some subdivision ordinance amendments. So we're hard at work on that, and also as a result of our land use plan, we had talked about doing some architectural design standards for multifamily stuff. So Stephen Penn in my office and I have been working on trying to get those architectural design standards formulated in a proposal format for you guys to look at and for ultimately council to look at as well. But basically we're looking at just the way any type of multifamily project we have come in town, we're going to be looking at how they're ultimately going to be set up, how they're going to look, what kind of things the town will want to see for those type of projects, and to make sure we get those incorporated in the zoning ordinance so that they'll have to abide by those rules. But other than that, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have of me.
All right. Only question for staff, and we'll roll this right into the next agenda item, which is comments from the board. So are there any questions and or comments as we move forward with the agenda?
When you say multifamily, do you mean apartments?
Typically, yeah, any type of multifamily.
Can you repeat what that was asked, Brian?
I'm sorry. So Mr. Tucker Moore asked the term multifamily. Does that include apartments? So multifamily would include anything other than single family. So if you're talking duplexes, townhomes, apartments. So we have seen interest from developers in putting townhome type subdivisions in our townhome, I would say subdivision, townhome developments or multifamily developments. So we're seeing some increased interest in doing it. We haven't gotten any type of proposal at this point, but I think it's going to be one of those things that it's going to be when, not if. So I don't know if we'll even have our stuff ready there are special requirements in our zoning ordinance now that it mainly addresses dimensional requirements. The architectural design standards, the state does give us the authority when you have more than 3 attached, so when you're talking about townhomes, we do have the ability to dictate what type of architectural standards, and that goes into just like materials. So if we're talking about the types of roofs or the types of siding or whatever, so we can actually, kind of steer what the town wants to see, and they'd have to abide by those guidelines.
Mr. Chairman, that was a concern of mine when we approved, and the town did also, that apartment complex down there on 11 between where the old rescue squad and Route 11 is. And my concern is, and I've heard from many people in the area, is there a concern that it might look like an army barracks. So the architectural is very important, and I would support that very much.
Yeah, and also I'm glad you brought that up. I'll give you an update on that one as well. So that company that did the Rezoning Request was they actually applied for state funding for that project, which they did not receive. So I don't know where that project stands on the development side. So if it does happen, it won't be for a little bit more length of time. So that property, from what I understand, could be something else at this point. So we don't know. It's up in the air.
Brian, quick question. How is Eli Ridge coming along?
So I just took the annexation for their first 2 phases, which will incorporate their amenity center and the pump station for sewer out there. So they're getting really close. It's probably going to be the turn of the year before they actually see any type of preliminary or any type of final plats go through and get lots on the ground. But that pump station is really, really deep. So to put that sewer in, it's a big undertaking. I think they're about 2 months into it. So they should be really close to getting that thing online and being able to serve sewer out there. So that's really the big holdup. And then obviously you'll see pavement go on the road, and they'll start cleaning up those lots and get them on the market.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Well, staff, we thank you for your input and your efforts in our meeting today. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that our time in this board meeting be adjourned as we have met all of the agenda items.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Is second?
Fleming, second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Please vote your approval upon roll call.
Dr. Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Killian,
Aye.
Mr. Briley,
Aye.
Ms. Clyburn, Ms. Crawford, Mr. Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
and Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
So.
Hey, Brian, quick question off the record. What happened with the broadcast of the town board meeting last week?